This is my father, King Edward VIII, the real King Edward VIII. And he never married Wallace Simpson, a double did. I want to put this up here now, though. Excuse me if I bounce around here. This is Wallace Simpson, who married a double. She was an American spy. She married a double. There was more than one imposter double claiming to be my father. My father was always married to Claudia Ruth O'Keefe from Madison, Wisconsin. And that's where Ryan in Congress, he's from Madison. Grand Prairie is where my mom is, suburb. Well, I don't want to get mixed up in all that right at the moment, telling too many details. But anyway, that was a whole lie. It was to take down my father with character assassination and then stealing me. And I was born in 1939. And here is George, and there's Roosevelt's married to Roosevelt. Next to him is President Roosevelt. Supposedly the Queen Mom. Can you believe this? Elizabeth's mother married to this sorry sot that helped take his brother down, and the Illuminati put him up there, made him so-called king. It's illegal, but they did it. Who would follow his orders, the Illuminati's orders. My father refused. This is what he suffered for being a decent man. Lies and more lies. Now, I wanted to get this. This is Timothy McVeigh, and I had said prior, I wrote a book, a medical malpractice book about mind control and its use, and I can be redundant, I guess, trying to get a little background for people who aren't familiar, okay, with my videos. It's about mind control. I was writing about in 1976. I'd worked for doctors and etc. I was doing the book, and I found, well, I began to piece together a new of murders that were using mind control. And back then, way back, it's probably so easy to do it, but back then you used a ham set, and it signals, and you can, I know a ham set because, well, I'll get in, and this will run out, because a ham set was used back when I worked for Curl Wholesale right out of high school, and they saw all this electronic gear. But I did books, I didn't know anything about it, that later all this would happen. But anyways, it's as easy as sending signals, and I know that the odd thing was that I'm working at Curl Radio, and this is in 57 to 58. I worked there exactly a year and married. Anyway, someone from the Dempsey family, the only decent one in it, I guess, he was in the Navy, and it's odd. He was wanting to speak to his fiancée, or maybe they were married, Rebecca. And it was odd because where I worked, Bull Durham, and it really was his name, William Durham, Bull Durham, they rigged it so he could talk to her through the ham. By the way, Mr. Durham was a ham enthusiast. So was Art Bell, that was murdered recently. Any fool knows it was murdered. So I'm going to get lost in all this. Anyway, the signals. And now then, your satellites, you start talking about it, and they'll tell you you're crazy, and use mental health system, which they've destroyed because nobody tells the truth about it. Anybody that, so this was the whole plan. Now, I don't want to lose you here with my stuff. This is implantable biochips, and it's telling about chipping, and exactly what I was telling about in 76, started telling about placing chips on it. I told about root canals, etc. It's called The Mark of the Beast, and it's about your global government that kidnapped me. The Illuminati, they took down my dad, and the illegal treaties that were signed after they took down my dad and put in George VI, illegal, Elizabeth's father. They were allowed to get away with the treaties, and the end of it is the global government, the UN, United Nations in New York City, where the Rockefeller headquarters are. And they'll show you right on NBC over the door, and the top of it is Rockefeller. Okay, I've always said that Timothy McVeigh, I started doing this in 76. I think the book was published in 70. I mean, no. They sent it up to me in the early 90s. Okay, I was on the trail. I believe that's when they did. I wish I had the book. I just couldn't carry the stuff around. So anyway, he said that the Army implanted a chip in his buttocks. He was in the Army. And he was put to death for the Oklahoma City, so he was programmed. He's a victim. Now, this is Larry Flynt. I'm going to put it up again, and I think this is probably the reason. Well, I don't know. He helped me in the campaign to replace Congressman Dr. Larry McDonald, who was supposed to went down in the plane, KAL, that was shot down from Juneau, Alaska to Seoul, South Korea, with 250 plus passengers. One of them was supposed to be the doctor and thus the congressman. Thus, this is how I got in the special election. Now, I'd always said that, by the way, President Nixon was on that same flight and taken off minutes before takeoff, so they knew it was going down. Whether Larry McDonald was actually on there or it was they took the whole plane down, because things were because of my book and what they had done to me April Fool Day of 80. Now here is Larry Flynt. This is in 83. And I knew his shooting was a program shooter that did it. And so it was done in patterns. And I lived at Moonraker and Marietta, about 60 miles from where he was shot. Now this is in 1983. And then this was actually that he did this and sent it to me. They did April of 84. And you don't hear anybody else up there telling you about this, do you? Elizabeth sure doesn't. She's part of the Illuminati. I'm going to turn this around now and see if I can keep it straightened up there so people can, not just see my nose. Okay, so I've been telling about mind control murders, but it's the Tesla files, and I won't reiterate about that and the connections, but it's where you can create an illness or cure it. In other words, they've always had a cure for cancer, or they can cause you to have a heart attack, or cause, like Robin Williams is a prominent figure in here where they made it appear he committed suicide. That's a friggin' lie, and if all this is ever laid out, you can't discredit it. It does. Once you get some of it up there, you can't disprove it because it's true. Now, I hesitated yesterday. In fact, I deliberately didn't put it up. Only about 3 days ago or 4, I spoke with a lady, and I'm not going to say who she is. I spoke with 2. They recently were introduced to me, and they're out of state. And I had conversation, quite long ones, with both of them over the last few days. I want to get to this one, though. One of the ladies, and I'm not going to involve them in anything, it's the phone calls. One was in Albuquerque, New Mexico. The other one was nearby. They're not too far away. Wow. Oh, you have to... anyway. The lady I spoke with that was not from Albuquerque, nearby, well, that's where she called from, is important. I don't get them involved in this. But I spent a long time on the phone with her, and I started telling about my husband after he worked for the space industry, Lockheed, Marietta, and all this back in Huntsville, spacecraft and all this. So, but after he had a company, which I wonder who financed it really now. It went bankrupt, and he started driving an 18-wheeler. Of course, he also has ties to the CIA, so I never saw a paycheck from them. So I was telling her, because somebody in her family was drove I forgot the truck. I didn't understand what she was trying to say. It was some kind of truck, and I started in on telling her about my husband, and I said, well, at least he got pretty good insurance and all that, and a pretty good check. So we were talking about that, And she knows about the mind control and all that I've been telling about. Very nice lady. And I think it's the next day, which would have been the day before yesterday, or it was the day prior that we were talking. And lo and behold, I was telling her also about the Greyhound bus was owned by the royal family out of Canada. Now, whether that's true today, I don't know if they still own it. And make a long story short, some of the royal family have to be trying to help me, some of them. In the immediate family, I hope. They're not all like Elizabeth and part of the Illuminati. But anyway, I was talking to her and telling her about the Greyhound bus being and some things that had happened when I was on Greyhound bus. Now then, after that conversation, the next day, which would be, I guess, day before yesterday, nowadays the 1st of September. Yesterday's 31st of August, that's when Larry McDonald was supposed to be on the plane, KAL, and it went down, they got in a special election. Now then, I'm talking to her about that, and the next day, very next day, which is the day before yesterday, so that I've just told you, that's when the it's a tractor trailer, a huge one. Well, you can look on TV, and it's been all over the media. And supposedly they gave that the reason for it crossing the media and everything, the driver lived, but the Greyhound driver died, and there's 8 dead in that now. That it crossed the media and hit the Greyhound bus. And it wasn't far from Albuquerque. And they mentioned that. Now, and there were twins that lived. That their mother was on the Greyhound bus, a passenger, and they lived. Now, I don't get all if they were just birthed or what. I think that they weren't that old. But you can check that out on Google. There's a thing about twins. So the precision in mind control is, it's, well, you can get it. In the end, it's like zap, zap, zap. Who owns the last zap and puts that person under mind control and controls everything? So I hesitate to put this up because they started saying, well, they were investigating it, and obviously the truck was the tractor trailer that hit it was at fault, and they tried to say it blew a tire. Well, I started to put this up, and I thought, no, they're trying to say a tire blew, but I know this is connected. I totally do. So I didn't go up and put this one up. So this morning I'm watching local Channel 10, and believe you me, 7, 10, all of them, the media, all of it, the Illuminati controls it, and they know all this. And they said something this morning, one of the people that I like, I think's honest, and he knows, he's been here a long time, but he said there's more to what they're looking into. There's more that caused the crash than the tractor trailer that hit the Greyhound blowing a tire. Now, whatever they cover it up with, or if ever this is told, that was a mind control in it, used in it. I also wanted to mention that okay, I'm going to say this about Trump. I've always said I liked him. And when I went back the other day to check out to make sure, when I was talking about the Tesla files, is where I started doing about the mind control. It's connected to the Tesla files, and there's a lot of the Philadelphia experiment and all this brainwave entrancement. It's absurd how much this man had, and the Illuminati stole it, but then you've got the FBI got a hold of it, but Donald Trump's uncle, who was a MIT grad, and you should get into how they use the mentally ill to mind control on them in experiments and LSD and all this. It wasn't just 1 or 2 colleges and research. They did it in a whole bunch. It's absurd way back then. Anyway, Donald Trump's uncle was supposed to have gotten a hold of them and stole them. So then the FBI supposedly got them. And this is what I was writing about mind control. Now I've lost my train of thought here, trying to give information. Here's the one thing, though, I did want to... Oh, I want to say this. Canada's part of the UK, part of the British. And they paid a price sending people in the war, which turned out to be to fight against ourselves. When my father was taken down and I was kidnapped, and it allowed all that to happen. And all those treaties, and the United Nations is a front for the Henry Kissinger, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Kennedy clan, etc., the Freemasons, the mafia. Put it bluntly, the mafia controls your world. And nobody wants to hear it. It's revelations, and I totally believe it now after researching in the timeline. But now I will lose my train of thought here. Well, I really have, but I know I wanted to put this in. They have really made heroes. I'm not saying that Aretha Franklin's doesn't sing well. I liked her. I grew up in her era, and I liked her. I think she's great. But if you watch, I'm telling you to watch what the media did with her. Okay, now then, John McCain died, and I know nobody gives a rat's when you start telling this. I can go. They come after me. John McCain was made. Look at what they did with him over the past. The media. Okay, they've incited the media so that they're probably, wow, I'm afraid to put this up almost. You know what they can do? It wasn't okay to do to my country what you all did, and part of my own people did it. Churchill, my own uncle, etc. But I was kidnapped and brought here, and what was done to my children is appalling. You know, if he's proud to be, John McCain was saying that, and everybody. Why is it that you keep hidden? And I'm 79 years old. The lifelong hell and what you got out of it. You made the Brits fight against their own interests. Why don't you tell it? That's what I've said for a long time. You wave the flag and all this. Why don't you tell what you've done to me and mine and my dad and country? And by the way, Justin Trudeau of Canada, thank you for standing up for Canada, which is what you should do, and what Elizabeth is not even the monarch. She should be arrested, but she represents the Illuminati. So you get the drift. Now then, I want to get back to who attended the funeral up there. They've got Henry Kissinger, who was the Bloomingdale, that's another story. The Bloomingdale tapes, the Watergate tapes, and the 18-minute gap and a half gap. And I've told you who that was on that 18-minute gap, and the reason that they spliced it or whatever they did to it. It was demanding they cross his palms and the global government. He was with Nixon's State Department and head of the State Department, Defense Department. Well, he's a Rockefeller. He's almost head of the global government, if not the Illuminati, Freemasons. So now and this isn't about 1972. I could go back and find the real date. And they replayed or role-played in the District Attorney Simpsons when I worked there in 80. And it started triggering memories back about what happened. They had given me, what is it that knocks you out? But, well, it doesn't knock you out. You can't walk or anything. But you know what's going on. And they took me over, and I put this up, and I'm going to run out of time, over to they put it in my coffee, and I couldn't walk or anything, but I knew what was going on, and took me over to College Park to the trolley tracks where they all crossed, and there was a clinic there, a small white clinic, was still there in 1990.